You're watching World Cleanup Day, the show coming to you from Pristina in Kosovo for 2019. We're getting loads of great videos in from all over the world. Countries are updating us, so keep all that great content coming in. Now, over the course of the entire show, we've been talking about really aspirational things that we want to do in countries all over the world. But behind that, we need policy, we need the help of governments, of corporations, and of people like the United Nations, the EU, and here are some of the people in power. We have a panel in front of us. I'm going to introduce some of them here. These are very impressive titles, so I'm going to quiz you afterwards, see if you can remember some of them. Just to my left here, we have Miss Ulrika Rickardsson. She is from the United Nations. She is the Development Coordinator in Kosovo, and she's also from beautiful Sweden, where I was 2 weeks ago. Beside her, we have Mr. Jan Bratu. He's the head of OSCE, the mission in Kosovo. That is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Beside him, we have Miss Annette Lihic from the European Union. She is the Chief Political Advisor and the Executive Coordinator with the EU. And I recognize this face from Tallinn, Estonia last year. We had a great discussion on the program this day last year, live on air. And this is Sim Kistler. He's a member of the Estonian Parliament, a really big force behind World Cleanup Day, and he's also the president of the 4th United Nations Environment Assembly. Talk about feeling like an underachiever when you hear all these great credentials. How are you all today?
Very well.
Very well. Let's start with you because you're closest to me. How long have you been here from Sweden?
How long I've been in Kosovo? I've been in Kosovo for almost 1.5 years.
And what does your role entail? What does it do, your mission?
My mission here in Kosovo is basically to make the UN agencies and organizations work a little more effectively, meaning I team lead their work here in Kosovo so that we can be more impactful in improving the lives of people who live here in Kosovo.
Now, you've teamed up with World Cleanup Day. You're supporting it. Why do you think that's important?
We have supported World Cleanup Day and Let's Do It Kosovo since the first day. For the United Nations, these type of movements that start from the grassroots, movements that engages people, men, women, but particularly youth, those movements for United Nations are very essential because they actually change societies from the bottom up. And so this is why we have supported it. And environment, of course. You cannot be indifferent to environment.
It's one thing supporting it, like from behind a desk, and saying, yeah, we support this theoretically, but I believe in your office you've been hands-on from the beginning.
Yes, we've been joining the team. We've been going out to communities, to villages, to clean up, to join efforts in cleaning up the environment, but also to speak about how important it is that we actually preserve a very clean sea, a clean lake, a clean environment for future generations.
Let's talk about some specific examples, because yesterday I was talking to your colleagues about a village which he described as like ground zero for air pollution. What have you done there to try and combat that problem?
Well, we've been going there for quite some time, and we've been talking to the people who live there, and these are people who live under quite difficult conditions, and obviously the
because
environment.
Of the air pollution.
There is air pollution, but there is also really a huge problem in terms of waste management, in terms of no clean green spaces so that children can play safely. But of course, air pollution is a big problem because it affects the health of in particularly the children. But we've been going there to speak with the people in that community to see what together we can do more and better. Planting trees, but that's quite symbolic. That won't sort of solve any problems in the short run. But for sure, it's about engaging the communities to really try to collectively find solutions to problems that they are facing on a daily basis.
You have many passions in many different areas, not just the environment, am I right?
True. If you look around, I think here, for example, you will see that wheel with all those colors. And that is actually the Sustainable Development Goals. Those are the 17 global commitments that the whole world have committed to. And these 17 commitments, they make up the whole Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. And there you will see basically these 17 goals are built on pillars. And these pillars are peace, people, prosperity, partnerships, and planet. And that means that we need to take all of these different dimensions into consideration when we look at, let's say, society building, when we look at the world in terms of having a sustainable development, so that we know that we can live well, but also that our future generations can live well with a clean and healthy environment around us.
The environment, of course, is a priority for everyone here and involved in Let's Do It World and the World Cleanup Day. But other people have different priorities, and particularly within the United Nations. I know there are so many different agencies, 19 here in Kosovo even. And we all know UNICEF for children, UN Women for women's empowerment and gender issues, the World Health Organization. But you have spoken before about how these things are linked even to the environment. Give me an example of how, let's say, women's empowerment and gender issues, and how does that link in with the environment and these issues as well?
Well, we see that women make up 50% of the population. If you have those 50% of the population excluded from decision making, you have them also excluding from anything that has to do with, let's say, taking decisions basically at the local level, but also at the central level and at international level. And still we know that women are the ones that live closest to communities. They tend to know very well what are the problems at the local level. They know very well what are the problems a family is facing, for example. They traditionally they take care of children. So women actually know very well about what problems exist. But if you don't include women in finding the solutions and above all, deciding on the solutions, and then deciding on budgets, deciding on policies, then of course you're not going to find these durable solutions. And they live with problems that concern environment. Lack of water, for example, lack of fresh air. They see it, their children are getting sick. There is no, let's say they need to heat the house. So you need to find wood or coal to heat your house. They face all of those problems, but they are not part of deciding on the solutions. So that's a typical issue around gender inequalities that exist. That's why women have to be included when we find solutions and when we take decisions.
And that's why all the big issues are all interconnected. Ulrika, we'll come back to you in a moment for one final question, but let's go next to Mr. Jan Bratu, who, like I said, is the head of the OSCE mission here in Kosovo. You talked before about the importance of these grassroots movements and civil action, because in a lot of countries people say, well, pollution is terrible and of course I don't agree with it, but that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to pay my taxes, to provide for my family. Someone else, the government, it's their job to fix the environment. Why is it so important for people to take this into their own hands?
It is a government responsibility to fix the environment, but we all have a responsibility. All citizens should be engaged, and I think this is one of the really positive things of the whole Let's Do It movement. It encourages people, particularly young people, to take responsibility. We can talk about solving global problems, global environmental problems, but we have to start somewhere, and I think we have to start in our own neighborhoods. And I think it's hugely valuable to encourage citizens' participation in order to push for change. And I think this is happening now in the environmental movement. That people, especially young people, are now more and more pushing for change, taking responsibility, showing themselves that they care, and pushing for different approaches on the part of governments.
How do you mobilize people? How do you get people to really care?
I think awareness raising is the first thing, but you have to organize. And I think this again is something that the Let's Do It movement has really managed to achieve, and not the least here in Kosovo, where young people have been given the opportunity to participate. In the past, they probably wanted to do something, but they didn't know how to do it.
They need a call to action.
Call to action, they're given an opportunity. And look at all the activists that are engaged in Let's Do It Kosovo. In these cleanup days that are held not just once a year actually now in Kosovo, but throughout the year. And it shows that young people want to make a contribution, they want to participate, but they need to have some help in order to organize themselves.
Is it a case that sometimes it has to get so bad that it forces people to take action? Is that kind of the point we've got to, you think, globally?
Well, perhaps, but I think there have always been reasons to engage in environmental issues. This has just been growing more and more over the decades. But I think that the awareness is something that has now reached a point where people say, look, we don't want to live like this anymore. We want to have a clean local environment, local surroundings. We want to have clean air. We're thinking about the global environment. So I think it's something, the time has come.
So tell me about some of the work that the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe do specifically. What kind of projects do you work on?
We're not a project organization. We are a capacity building organization. The OSCE, as maybe some of you know, it consists of 57 participating states. It's the largest regional organization in Europe, actually.
And what does that mean, capacity building organization?
Well, look, our mandate it gives us the role to be the main institution, the main organization for institution building in Kosovo. We work on human rights issues. We work on local security issues, which basically means working with the police. Good governance. I think that's the title that I would use for all of these issues. And good governance includes environment. It includes looking after the local environment, encouraging people. But we do more, because it's good governance is kind of like a top-down. But we also work on developing civil society. And that's where Let's Do It Kosovo really comes into the picture, because it's developing grassroots activity which is not paid for by somebody. It's based on volunteerism. And I think volunteerism is a huge thing that we need it in all our societies.
That's an interesting point you make, because the other day here in Pristina, I was talking to a taxi driver about the environment and just the city and the issues there. And he made a point to me saying, well, look, I mean, we're just a country since 2008. And for our government, I mean, they have other priorities. So you're saying to them, it's all part of the one ecosystem.
Sure.
Good governance also means that the environment should be a top priority.
Well, I mean, Ulrika was mentioning it. I mean, you have waste dumps all over the place. This is a public health issue as well. It's not just that it looks terrible, it's a public health issue. On World Roma Day, International Roma Day on the 8th of April, we had a cleanup action where my organization participated with Let's Do It Kosovo in cleaning up one of the local Roma neighborhoods. Terrible conditions, unbelievable conditions. Kids shouldn't be growing up in these kinds of conditions. There are health issues here as well. So I think we have to take responsibility. We have to tell government, local government as well, it's not just national government, it's local municipalities, that look, this is not acceptable. You have to find solutions, systemic solutions for waste management, for example.
Thank you, Jan. We'll move on to Annette next. Annette Lehich, as I said, is the Chief Political Advisor and Executive Coordinator with the EU and based here in Kosovo. Are you from Kosovo originally, or where are you from?
No, I'm originally from Germany.
Okay, so good. What part of Germany?
In the southwest.
Nice.
Heidelberg.
How long have you been here in the country?
I've been here 2 years, but I also worked in Kosovo from 2008 to 2011.
Great, fantastic. So tell me about some of the environmental programs that the EU supports, let's say, across Europe, not just in Kosovo.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would like to mention that the protection of environment is very high on the agenda in the European Union. The new president of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has now underlined it once again. So this is really top priority. The Western Balkan countries, they are on their way towards the European Union. We call it on the path to the European Union. And that means also that we are strongly supporting environmental projects, programs, but also we're looking into environmental protection from a different angle, and that means from policy. So the overall policy and also the rule of law. And here it gets a little bit complicated, and I also want to echo what Jan just said. It's about good governance, it's about rule of law, but it's also about trade, it's about economy, and it's about health. So we have all these different layers which need to be tackled, and it cannot be top down or the other way around. So we really need local initiatives, but we also need to have governments which are committed to protect the environment. It's often seen a little bit as a hurdle here, but it's actually the other way around. When we look into the economy, there are so many job opportunities in the environmental sector. And on the other way around, if you have a very polluted environment, then the investors will not come. And we do see that in Kosovo. If you, for example, take the winter months, we all suffer from the high pollution. But everything what is in the air also goes in the ground, and then it goes in the food chain, and then in the end it goes in us. And then we have a health system which is struggling. So it's really about all the different sectors, and it's complex, but it's also doable. And I don't want to be misunderstood. Within the European Union, we are also not yet there. We have a lot of problems. We have different member states. Some are more advanced, some are less advanced. So it's a complex issue, but I think we can and we have to tackle it.
That's a good point, that there's an economic knock-on effect as well, because
Absolutely.
being from Ireland, we have lots of transatlantic and multinational companies in the country, which we're grateful for, but you often hear them say that one of the choices that they've picked Ireland, apart from our tax rate, is that it's great quality of life. You want to go somewhere where you'll be happy and your employees will be happy as well. And here in Kosovo, anything, projects you're working on, the EU now, that you're very proud of?
Well, we have many projects, concrete projects, and of course I have done also my homework
You've
here.
done lots of homework.
Yes, a lot of homework, but I just wanted to mention that the European Union is supporting Kosovo with approximately 100 million euros per year in different sectors, but the amount is huge. When it comes to the environmental sector, and here I have the breakdown for all the different places here in the Western Balkans. But if we look at the IPA funding, so it really adds, and Kosovo gets the highest share. So we're talking about until from 2014 to 2020, we're talking about really 143.8 million.
Wow.
Only for Kosovo.
For environmental
Only
projects.
for environmental projects. That is foreseen in IPA funding. IPA funding, that means the instrument for pre-accession. As I said, the Western Balkan is on its way to the European Union. So this is heavily supported, but of course...
And they're putting their money where their mouth is as well.
Yeah, but what we need is local counterparts. So what we need is really a commitment also from the government. What we need is we cannot. I mean, we are not ruling this country.
Money
all
won't
of
just
us
fix
are.
the problem.
Exactly.
In a long term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the end of the day, it's really also the choice of the local population and the politicians. What we can do is we can support it, but and we can advise, and this is what we do.
Thank you, Annette. We'll move on to Sim Kistler. Finally, Sim, again, we spoke last year when we came live from Estonia, the first ever World Cleanup Day. But a lot of people don't know this, that World Cleanup Day, although now is a global initiative, a global movement across every continent, it was running for 10 years in Estonia.
Yes, the very first time I heard about such idea was in 2007. So about 12 years ago already, when two very active Estonian citizens came to my office. I was back then member of government responsible for regions of Estonia and regional development. And they asked for financial support for such idea that just common people would go out one day, the same day, and it was called Let's Do It Estonia, and cleanup day for the whole country. Estonia is a tiny country, but back then it seemed really something unreal that the whole Estonia would be out there and picking up trash at the same day. And it was very successful. I think it changed the mentality really in Estonia.
Wow.
It's very different today. If you look around Estonia, for example, after some big public gatherings, some rock concerts, for example, the squares are much cleaner, the space is much cleaner than it used to be.
That's
People
incredible,
really
isn't it?
have changed their attitude, their behavior. And last year, I was so proud that it was arranged the first time by Estonians, the World Cleanup Day. They had, again, such a crazy idea, the same people, to
Why?
make it worldwide.
Why go worldwide? Why not, it was working great nationally, the country's getting cleaner and cleaner. You could have just kept it to yourself and said, well, this is a great thing we've got going here. Why make it global?
they were so enthusiastic, the excitement was there, they wanted to achieve more and to prove it was possible all over the world. So it was basically the same model. They started with the regions in Estonia, and then they started with the continents in the world. And it was a pleasure. Back then I was Minister for Environment and also responsible for United Nations Environment Assembly, so I had again very good chance to support them. I wrote personal letters to all the environment ministers all over the world, asking for local support to the local movements, Let's Do It movements in every country, and I heard afterwards that it helped a lot.
I was talking to an Estonian and they said when it started 11 years ago in Estonia that there was a need for it. There were shopping trolleys and rivers and lakes and a lot of litter like we have in most countries, but they said now Estonia is clean. It's a clean country.
It has changed really.
It's a
This
beautiful,
year
clean
they
country.
concentrated a lot on cigarette filters, you know, looking for smaller stuff. Of course there are
Still
illegal
problems, yeah.
dump sites still present. The problem is
only
there,
a
as in
fraction
any
of what there
country,
was, yeah.
but the pictures have really changed in Estonia, and I'm so proud of that.
Well, that is great. And we're proud of you for starting it and for all of you for being so involved now. And I want to thank you all to Sim, Annette, Jan and Ulrika from Sweden. Thank you all so much for participating and for coming to the broadcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you.